This is the story of how a reclusive genius in a basement, a voice from the heavens, and a corporate illusion changed rock and roll forever. This is the story of Boston's triumphs and tragedies. The story of Boston doesn't start in a garage, but in a basement, and it doesn't begin with a band, but with one man, Tom Schultz. Before he was a rock god, Schultz was a different kind of wizard, a mechanical engineer with a master's degree from the prestigious Massachusetts Institute of Technology. After graduating, he took a job as a product design engineer at the Polaroid Corporation. By day, he was developing new technologies. By night, he was building a secret laboratory in the basement of his Watertown, Massachusetts apartment. And this wasn't just any home studio. Using his engineering smarts and his Polaroid salary, Schultz designed and built his own recording equipment, inventing gear to create the sounds he heard in his head. He was a perfectionist, obsessed with crafting a sound no one had ever heard before. A symphony of layered, harmonized guitars and immaculate production, inspired by classical music and guitar-heavy rock. For 6 long years, Schultz worked in isolation, meticulously recording nearly every instrument himself, guitars, bass, keyboards, creating a sonic wall of unparalleled depth. But his masterpiece was missing one thing: a voice. He found it in Brad Delp. Delp was a local singer with a flawless tenor that could shift from gentle and soulful to a powerful rock wail with effortless grace. Schultz and Delp had played together before and started collaborating on the demo tapes Schultz was painstakingly creating. Down in that basement, they were making magic. The world just didn't know it yet. They sent their demo tapes to every major record label, only to get a mountain of rejections. One label, Epic Records, even sent back what Schultz later called an insulting rejection letter, claiming the band offered nothing new. But persistence and a little help from a couple of promoters who believed in the sound would change everything. After years of being told no, Epic Records finally came around and offered them a contract in 1975. There was just one catch. The label wanted a band, a 5-man group they could put on an album cover and send on tour. The reality was that Boston, at its core, was just Tom Schultz and Brad Delp. On top of that, the label insisted that the album be re-recorded in a professional, state-of-the-art LA studio. Schultz knew the unique sound he'd spent years perfecting in his basement could never be duplicated in a traditional studio. So he cooked up an elaborate deception. He hired producer John Boylan to run interference with the label execs, while Boylan took a lineup of hired guns, guitarist Barry Goudreau, bassist Fran Sheehan, and drummer Sib Hashin out to Los Angeles to create the illusion that they were recording. Schultz was secretly back in his Massachusetts basement, re-recording the entire album himself, exactly how he wanted it. The other musicians were there to create a marketable image, but the album itself was Tom Schultz's singular vision brought to life by Brad Delp's incredible voice. It was a high-stakes gamble against the entire industry machine, and it paid off, bigger than anyone could have imagined. When the self-titled album Boston dropped on August 25, 1976, it wasn't just a record, it was a revolution. From the iconic opening strums of More Than a Feeling, the world was hooked. The album was a monster, shattering sales records to become the best-selling debut album in the US at the time. It would eventually sell an estimated 17 million copies in the United States alone and over 20 million worldwide. The album was a testament to Schultz's genius. Songs like Peace of Mind, Foreplay, Long Time, and Smoking became instant anthems, and nearly the entire album is still in constant rotation on classic rock radio today. A record born from one man's obsessive vision in a basement had become one of the biggest albums on the planet. Tom Schultz, the engineer from Polaroid, was now a rock and roll star, and Boston was on top of the world. But the pressure to do it again, combined with Schultz's legendary perfectionism, would soon expose the cracks in the foundation. The triumph was immediate, but the follow-up was anything but. The record label, hungry for another blockbuster, wanted a quick sequel. But that just wasn't Tom Schultz's style. He refused to be rushed. The second album, Don't Look Back, was finally released in 1978, a full 2 years after the debut. And while it was a huge success, hitting #1 and selling over 7 million copies, Schultz felt it was rushed and incomplete, snatched by the label before he thought it was done. This kicked off a long and bitter war between Schultz and the record company, a tangle of lawsuits and contract disputes that would plague the band for years. The 8-year gap between Don't Look Back and the third album, Third Stage, was filled with legal fights. Tensions were also boiling over inside the band. Guitarist Barry Goudreau released a solo album in 1980 that sounded a lot like Boston, creating friction with Schultz and eventually leading to his departure. The pressure of fame and the slow, meticulous pace set by Schultz started wearing everyone down. The united front the world saw was crumbling behind the scenes. The internal conflicts were just the start of the band's painful journey. The years that followed were marked by profound loss. Drummer Sib Hashin, whose powerful beat drove those first 2 albums, officially left the band during the troubled sessions for the third album. Decades later, in a tragically poetic rock and roll exit, Hashin died in March 2017 after collapsing from a heart attack while performing on a Legends of Rock cruise. He was 67 years old, with his drumsticks still in hand. But the most devastating tragedy, the one that shook the soul of the band, happened on March 9, 2007. On that day, Brad Delp, the man whose voice was the sound of sunshine and optimism for millions, died by suicide at his New Hampshire home. He was 55 years old. Delp died from carbon monoxide poisoning, leaving behind notes that spoke of a long battle with depression and having lost his desire to live. His death shocked the world and left a void that could never be filled. The golden voice of Boston was gone forever, and the band's story turned from one of conflict to one of pure heartbreak. In the wake of imaginable tragedy, the legacy of Boston has found a way to endure. Tom Schultz, the sole remaining original member still active with the band, continues to be the unwavering architect of Boston's sound. While the band hasn't mounted a major tour since 2017, Schultz remains active with charity work and his music. Barry Goudreau has stayed musically active since leaving Boston, forming bands like Orion the Hunter and RTZ, and often collaborated with former Boston members, including Brad Delp before his passing. Bassist Fran Sheehan has also pursued other projects, sometimes performing with Goudreau. The immense challenge of replacing Brad Delp's voice led to one of rock's most unlikely stories. In 2007, after Delp's death, Tom Schultz discovered Tommy DiCarlo, a credit manager at a Home Depot and a lifelong Boston fan, who had posted tribute covers on his MySpace page. Schultz was so stunned by how close DiCarlo sounded to Delp that he invited him to audition. DiCarlo got the gig and has been Boston's lead singer ever since, a fan who went from singing along in his car to fronting his favorite band. Boston's legacy is a testament to the obsessive genius of Tom Schultz and the celestial voice of Brad Delp, a sound of triumph that will echo through rock history, a sound that is so much more than a feeling. Please subscribe if you like this type of content.